This video reviews the in brief section from the Catechism of the Catholic Church 973 to 975. It's the second little excerpt that's focused on the Most Blessed Virgin Mary. So we get reference to the Annunciation, right, the Incarnation, and we've spoken about that before in a previous section, really thinking about the mystery of human will involved with the mystery of divine will in God's plan of salvation. That when God sends the angel Gabriel for the Annunciation to Mary, it's not against her will, right? That God creates room for Mary to say yes. And in Latin, the word for the yes or the let it be done unto me is fiat mihi secundum verbum tuum, right? So by pronouncing her fiat in the Annunciation, giving her consent, Mary collaborates in the whole work of her Son. That's a unique role for Mary, right? I mean, among all women, among all men, who gets to collaborate in the salvation of the entire world? The woman who allows Christ to enter the world, to take on flesh. That's a unique person in salvation history. All right, some new things for us to discuss in the video series. The Most Blessed Virgin Mary, when the course of earthly life was completed, was taken up body and soul. All right, so we need to talk about the Assumption or the Dormition. And then Mary, as the new Eve, becomes the mother of the church, and she continues to exercise that role, the maternal role, on behalf of the members of Christ. So let's plot out a few things. One, there's this tradition of Mary going up, right? Mary into heaven. In the West, we typically refer to this as the Assumption of Mary. It's a mystery that we'll pray through. It's got feast days, lots of iconography, and you'll see it in stained glass windows. Those who are in the Greek tradition, both the Catholic and the Orthodox, refer to this as the Dormition often, which, means Mary lying dormant, Mary falling asleep. Part of the idea there is that we want to address where Mary went. She's assumed in heaven. God took her into heaven, right? Assumed. But we also want to point out that Mary, properly speaking, did not die, right? There's this reflection. She fell asleep, the great sleep in the Dormition. And again, that's because of her uniqueness in salvation history, that God would have assumed her body and soul into heaven. There are precursors of that, fiery chariots, prophets riding them up into heaven, perhaps. And then the idea that this would be better spoken of as sleeping than as death. All right, so we have the Assumption of the Dormition. Now, this shows up in a lot of places. I'd encourage you to take a look at the iconography around the cincture. There's a church of the cincture and even a relic of the cincture of Mary. A cincture is a fancy word for belt, and so sometimes it's called the Holy Belt. And you can just look for this online. And it would be the cincture or the Holy Belt of Mary, who, of course, we know is called Theotokos. And so you'll see those referred to. Theotokos being the mother of God, the one who bears God literally in her womb. So goes the story as Mary is ascending into heaven, being assumed into heaven. There's not going to be a relic of her, properly speaking, right? There's no bones left over to be buried. And so for the sake of those who might not believe or puzzle over this, Mary takes off the belt that would have held her dress close around her waist, right, the cincture, and she drops it from the sky, and it falls down. And in some traditions, it's even Thomas the Apostle, the doubting Thomas, who for whom that cincture is left. All right, take a look at that. Great iconography there. Lots of fun ways of thinking about Mary's Assumption or Mary's Dormition. Now, there's something else going on with Mary, the belt, where the belt lies, right? The belt lies over the belly, the hips, and what's behind the belly, the hips of Mary? Well, we have Mary's womb. And it's the womb which is particularly the sign of a mother, right? And so we're thinking of the maternity of Mary. Mary is our mother. Now, from Mary's womb, right, comes Jesus. But then Jesus says to us, hey, you need to become a brother and a sister of me, right? You need to be adopted as a child of God. Well, what would it mean to be related, as a brother or a sister of Jesus? Adopted under God the Father, it would mean to come from Mary's womb as well. So there's this very deep and important sense that if we're going to be related to Jesus, then we're also going to be related to his mother, and particularly we need to be born of her womb. Well, this gives us an image for baptism, right? To be baptized, to join Christ, to belong to the body of Christ, is to come from the womb of Mary. Now, this reflection, I don't want to say it's all over the church fathers and every church father, but it is not uncommon. And I'll call your attention to one particular church father if you want to take a look and read him. It's Ephraim the Syrian. And he has poems thinking about this, particularly Mary's womb and a place of baptism. Basil and Gregory of Nazianzus and Gregory of Nyssa, Basil I'm thinking particularly, has some great passages where they think of God knitting the incarnation in Mary's womb, or Mary's womb as God's workshop. And so where is it that we get worked on in order to belong to God? It's Mary's womb. Okay, so baptism, that's going to be linked to Mary's womb. The church, therefore, is going to be linked to Mary's womb. There's a second great sacrament which comes out of Mary's womb and which also configures us to Christ, and that's the Eucharist. And you can see some imagery of this. Sometimes you'll see Mary as a Eucharistic minister, and she'll be holding the chalice or the species, the bread, become the body of Christ. She'll hold a host out from her womb, right? And I think of this often when I receive communion myself or when I attend a baptism of someone else, that what we're doing is somehow entering into the womb of Mary. We belong to the maternity of Mary, particularly in these two great sacraments. I mean, who else can say, join my son, become a brother and a sister with him? Who else can say, this is the body of Christ, this is my body, the body born from my body? Mary, the great mother of the church in baptism and the mother of the church in the Eucharist. All right. If we truly want to be a Christian, we want to be like Christ, then we need to have some deep and abiding relationship to his mother's womb, to Mary's womb. Now, we know Mary assumed in heaven. That's a great place to intercede for us. I mean, communion of saints, all saints can intercede for us, but there's a unique role of Mary as mother in heaven, right? And that is Mary, unique in salvation history, unique relationship with her son. Mary has this unique role of interceding for others. Really, her whole life was one big intercession for others. What she did on behalf of the rest of the world, allowing God to work in her and through her. Sometimes we get mixed up about, Mary's unique role. She's clearly unique. No one else got to be the mother of God. No one else had the angel Gabriel visit her and announce to her that she would be the mother of God. No one else, in the Dormition, the Assumption, right? No one else has this relationship to Eucharist and baptism in the same way. Sometimes we miss the uniqueness, but sometimes we miss her intercessory power, right? She has that, again, unique role. Only she can speak of Jesus or speak to Jesus as his mother. But there's a third thing where we sometimes get confused, and that's when we glorify in some sense. When we speak well of, or when we notice that Mary has some great glory. And I want to think just for a minute about what it means to glorify or to recognize the creature. And if you think of any artist, if you're standing in a gallery or if you meet an artist, in the airport or something, right? And you say, "Oh my gosh, I love your music. It's so profound. You're a fantastic artist." Or I see your painting and I'm swept into these deep and incredible reflections. No artist takes your praise of her art as somehow denigrating her, right? If I come up to you and I say, the photograph you took is incredible, the poem you wrote is beautiful, your music moves me, your art touches me, no one walks away going, humph, right? Instead, everyone goes, thank you, that's wonderful. Why? Because the art is a reflection of the artist. And in praising the art, you also praise the artist. And it is the same way. When we recognize the beauty and the wonderfulness of a creature, precisely as creature, when we look at Mary and say, what a magnificent woman whom God made, we're not somehow detracting from God. We're in fact adding to God. We're recognizing God's plan of salvation, and God is pleased at that. So if we, in essence, glorify the creature, well, that is always a way of glorifying the Creator. It's not to denigrate God, but actually to show God's greater glory throughout his plan of salvation.